Queuing into Rebirth Island solo can be a nightmare, with the random teammates dying left and right and then blaming you for their mistakes. But solo queuing into ranked Resurgence is worse than a nightmare. It's like living through a horror film. And SkyCoach recently beat Elden Ring after 166 hours of game time, which just shows why Elden Ring is considered one of the most difficult games out. I don't think SkyCoach would ever reach Iridescent or even Diamond while solo queuing in Rebirth Ranked. It's that difficult. But I was able to reach Crimson solo queuing, and I got through half of Crimson solo as well while teaming up with my IRL friends to finish the grind to Iridescent. Is it mind-numbing and incredibly frustrating? Absolutely, and full of hackers, but it isn't impossible. Now, here are the 10 best tips I have for anyone stuck playing solo or even duo queued in Ranked Rebirth. Maybe Iridescent or Crimson is too hard for you, and that's okay, because with these tips, I guarantee that if you actually implement them into your game, you'll at least reach your very next rank. Whether you're a Platinum player going for Diamond or a Diamond going for Crimson, we can make this happen with these tips. Tip number 1 is all about communication and focus. As a solo queue player, you'll likely be queued up with a duo in the same party. If you want to reach any rank beyond Platinum, you're going to need to communicate with them and focus on situations together. If you don't use your microphone on your headset, then start using your pings. If your teammates are communicating and you aren't, then just make sure you're following their lead and paying attention to what they say. Communication is easy, and if you want to fight a team at Factory or go buy your loadout at Stronghold, you can easily just say that. Although many people do forget to communicate while in high pressure situations, it is infinitely better to say I have 2 in front of me by the basement staircase while you're in a fight, rather than what most people do, and that's say something like, "Oh my god bro, there's a full team here," after they die. If you only call out enemies after they knock you, then you're a detriment to the team, as it makes the rest of the team scramble to figure out what's going on and to get on the same page, which leads me to the other topic of tip number 1, focus. If your teammates call out that they're shooting at a team over at living quarters, but you're too focused on doing your own thing, shooting at people all over the map, then you won't make it out of Diamond. The best teams in Ranked Rebirth are always team shooting, and that means that they're all shooting the same enemies together at the same time. Meanwhile, the other teams are split and focused on different teams all around the map, not talking to each other during gunfights, and all in all, just not using basic teamwork. If you don't have teamwork on this tiny map, well then, good luck. Tip number 2 is respawning. Now, the most frustrating thing is losing SR because your teammates died with 1 or 2 seconds left on the respawn timer. The thing that makes me scratch my head the most is when a teammate respawns and they immediately dive back into where you just died at, or where I'm currently fighting for my life. If you do this, I'm genuinely curious why, so let me know in the comments, because the best thing you can do is land somewhere safely, regain, find weapons, ammo, money, and plates, while also surviving so that your teammates can get to you, or when they die, they can respawn and then land on you. Why would you land back into a hectic area with a pistol and 2 plates on? The goal of Resurgence is survival. Landing on me when I'm fighting a full team because you already died does not help me. You and your pistol 9 times out of 10 are not going to help me in this fight, and in all likelihood, you'll just land and die again, but this time we'll all die and there won't be a respawn. Also, if you aren't getting shot out of the sky, then just float for a little bit, especially if you're the only one alive. You can stay in the sky safely for a good portion of the respawn timer, but if your teammate has 10 seconds left before they respawn, stop landing, especially landing back where you just died. Just float for a little bit, and I noticed this a ton with players stuck in Platinum and Diamond. Learn to live longer the easy ways, like floating or landing and looting somewhere safe. Now, before we get to the rest of the tips, I teamed up with SkyCoach today. For anyone struggling to reach Iridescent or unlock the Mastery camos, SkyCoach makes it easy. SkyCoach, you can get ranked up and receive all the rewards in the game even if you don't have the time to grind for them. SkyCoach is a coaching and boosting service that has completed over 150,000 successful orders among many popular games, including Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. SkyCoach can level up and unlock all weapons and attachments. They can grind to the top ranks in both multiplayer ranked as well as the new Rebirth Resurgence ranked, helping you get that brand new Iridescent camo and that skin. They can unlock the new Champions Quest nuke rewards for you as well, and even unlock the 4 Mastery camos, as well as all kill streaks and field upgrades too. And the process is this simple. First, you choose a service and discuss your order details. You can see the order status in real time, and they will immediately appoint the best pro player to take care of your request. And after that, your order's completed. The best part is all customers customer information is kept secure, and you will have professional communication from platform managers and pro players. Orders are processed immediately, and you'll receive a full and immediate refund in case of default. If SkyCoach was available back when I was in school, I would have had a lot less sleepless nights, and I would have just let them grind out these challenges. But luckily it's available now, so head to the link in the description and unlock all the rewards that you deserve. And once again, thanks to SkyCoach for sponsoring this video. Tip number 3 is all about playing your life. Remember when Warzone 2 released and everyone was up in arms over the movement, or lack thereof? Well, the best part of the game now is that movement is back, so start using it to survive and extend your games. Similar to my last tip, if you're last alive, you need to survive until your teammates get back in, and too many times I witnessed teammates trying to take fights when me and a teammate were dead, meaning the last teammate alive was attempting a 1v3 or at best a 1v2. The amount of SR I lost from this was baffling, because in most cases you could just run, slide, and dive out of the fight, and if you're last alive, unless you have a 4 KD or higher, you should probably run and survive. And even then, I have a 5 KD and I always run if it's a 1v3 during ranked. Don't hide in a corner because you'll be an easy kill there as well, but also don't turn and fight because, again, you're an easy kill. Even the best players run away in these situations, and you know how sometimes when you die, it feels like it happened in the blink of an eye? Well, think about just how easy it is if you're fighting 3 people at once who know your exact whereabouts. Just run, use every wall, pillar, and door that you can to survive, and if you grab contracts, loot crates, and medic boxes, it reduces the respawn timer for your teammates. Now that you got them back in the game, you better hope they listen to tip number 2 and land somewhere safe and not right back on you. Tip number 4 is all about where we're going to be landing, and when you're solo queuing, it is extremely important that you land with your teammates. Feel free to suggest a landing spot, but if they don't listen, it's best that you just land with them. Well, within reason, of course, because sometimes Diamond 1 players want to land at a control center in a lobby full of Crimsons and Iridescents, or at Factory, which is a very popular spot for sweats to land in ranked. So sometimes you may just need to ditch your teammates, and again, only do this if you don't want to risk an early death. An easy way to decide is to jump with your team and then pull your parachute so you can float, and if the landing area is loaded with players, find somewhere safe, and when your team dies, they can land back with you, and if they survive, then you can safely work your way over to them. But getting killed right off the landing is a maximum SR loss, whereas simply surviving to the top 10 or top 7 at least mitigates the amount of SR you lose. Of course, the goal is to win and get kills, but sometimes as a solo queuer, the goal is to just survive as long as you can so that you don't lose a ton of SR. Even if you only go positive 2 SR, you can't go backwards if you're not losing it, so do whatever it takes to survive. For tip number 5, we're going to talk about utilizing your minimap. So now that the past 3 tips have been focused on survival, let's get into the tips that surround fighting and actually getting kills, and this first one is possibly the most important of this entire list, and that's just utilizing your minimap. And for starters, look at your minimap anytime you hear gunfire, as the enemy will show up on the map letting you know exactly where they are. This gives you a chance to reposition and get the kill, or if you see they're below you, then you can drop on them and get the kill, as they likely won't know where you are. As I mentioned in my 21 tips for Rebirth Island video, which you can click on the screen now if you want to watch it, if the red dot on the map has an arrow below it, the enemy is on a level lower than you, where if the arrow is above it, then you guessed it, they're above you. Also, utilize UAVs as often as possible, as the minimap will be infested with red dots indicating any enemies that don't have the ghost perk on, which can help you decide if you should either fight a team, or maybe your team is at prison and there's a full team in grandma's house. They're a good target for you. You can throw grenades and jump into the windows, but if the UAV says there's 2 teams at grandma's house, then maybe you should wait until after the fight to push them, because the last thing you want to do is fight one team while another team shoots you in the back. So buy UAVs anytime you can and pay attention to the pings. And lastly for this tip, after every kill up until respawn is disabled, the minimap will ping the surviving teammates of the player you just killed. If your team is alive and it's now a 3v2 and the minimap shows you where the last 2 enemies are, you need to tell your team where they are and then clear them out. Or if you kill a player, you can see if his team is pushing closer to you or if they're running away from you. Use this information wisely and make the right decision as to whether you chase them or not. Long story short, good players utilize their minimaps all game long, and if you aren't doing this already, then it's going to take you to a whole new level. Now let's talk about rotations. Do you land in on Rebirth Island ranked play at your go-to spot? Maybe it's somewhere like Bioweapons Lab, and you get your loadout and then you post up until the circle forces you to move to a new spot? Stop doing this. If you want to get out of your current rank and this sounds like you, then you need to start rotating sooner. A lot of you watching this know the feeling of being forced to move due to the gas closing in while a team is already in the zone holding you. This tip is a double-edged sword because for starters, you need to start rotating sooner. Don't wait until the circle makes you move. You become the hunted and not the hunter. But on the other side of this tip, once you start rotating sooner, be on the lookout for teams that are still out of the zone as the gas is moving in and focus on them when you find them. They have no choice but to move in towards you due to the gas damage. Meanwhile, you've become the hunter and not the hunted, so take advantage of the free kills in SR. Get yourself some cover and keep an eye on the teams that are rotating in. A lot of times, they'll have to run right into your line of sight to get to the new zone, which is a free kill for you, especially if your entire team is focused on the same enemies. Start getting into the new zones before the gas forces you to and watch your kills pile up, and in turn, you'll also survive longer. And another key tip for rotation is endgame. When the zone starts moving around, use your gas mask to get into the final zone before any other team does. If your gas mask breaks or if you don't even have one, sometimes you just have to eat some gas. You may even die during this if you have a self-revive that you can burn, because trust me, it's worth it. If you don't have a self-revive or a gas mask, then you may just have to wait a bit to rotate, but my point is, don't be afraid of some gas damage if it means that you're the first team to the new zone. For tip number 7, we're going to talk about loadouts. Now, is using the same loadout every game fun or exciting? No. Is losing SR fun or exciting? Also no. With that being said, feel free to use whatever loadout you want, but don't get mad when your Vel 46 gets outgunned by the meta submachine gun, which this past season was the Striker 9. So for this tip, I'm just going to let you guys know how I stay up to date with the meta. There are sites like wzstats.gg or apps like COD Munity, but these I have found are incorrect at times, especially after patches. I personally just get on Twitch and I find a player who I trust that's playing ranked and I check out what they're using. And in my opinion, Biffle, who's the reigning World Series of Warzone champion, is the best player in the Warzone scene, so when I need meta, I go straight to his stream and I just get his loadouts. Make whatever loadouts that you want. I make all of my own as well, but I only use those in public matches and I stick to the meta when I'm playing ranked. I usually get the meta from Biffle and I swap out maybe an attachment or two. Like in this video, you'll see I have a different site than what most people use, and this is what I recommend you do as well anytime a new meta surfaces. For tip number 8, I have a question for you. When you're playing ranked Rebirth, do you ever have a plan, or do you just point and shoot? The best players not only have a plan, but they have a backup plan in mind as well, and I don't mean that they're thinking out every aspect of their next move in deep detail, but for example, if you pop a UAV and see that there's a team at prison, then on the way up there to fight them, the best players are going to be paying attention to all of their surroundings. So plan A may be to use the gondola to zipline up to reach the prison rooftop, find a head glitch and take the fight. Simple enough, but even that thought process alone is better than what most people do who just blindly run at fights. Next time you're playing, before a fight, think of all the cover that's available to you. Think of all the different angles you or the enemy could both be using and play around that. The best players also have a plan B ready just in case things go haywire. So if you're going to top prison from the gondola, a good player is going to look at grandma's house on the way up and they're going to check each side of prison's rooftop. That way, if they need to escape the fight and survive or reposition, they know where they can go to do so. So while maybe you don't need to map out every single move you're going to make during a fight, you do need to have a rough idea of where you can move to during these fights. Thinking ahead like this can be the difference between a squad wipe and being squad wiped. Now that we're in the stretch run, these final 2 tips are 2 of my favorite, and for number 9, we're going to talk about assists. The easiest way to get passive SR is by focusing on assists, and most people don't know this, but you do get SR every time you shoot at someone that dies soon after, even if your team doesn't get that kill. I always made sure to try and get at least 1 bullet into every enemy flying in or running towards a fight that I could. If I just hit them 1 time, I get as much SR as if I got them down to 1 HP and then my teammate killed them. As we talked about in tip number 2, usually players landing back in aren't making smart choices and they might land right back into a fight. If I hit them 1 time while they fly in, I'm more likely to get an assist than not because they're landing back into a fight with just a pistol. 9 times out of 10 they're gonna die, whereas on the other hand, if I'm somewhere like top prison and I see a fight's going on at grandma's like we discussed earlier, we should wait until that fight is over before we push so that we're not getting shot by 2 teams. But while I wait, I'm shooting as many of them as possible, and by the time that fight is over and we push over to clean up the rest, I'm already plus 20 SR just from assists. It honestly makes no sense, and I'm sure they'll change this soon, but for now, take advantage of it and pepper as many opponents as you can, even if you're not planning on fighting them, especially the people flying in. And for my final tip of today's video, stop forcing your SR. Now think about it with me here. How many times have you had a good start to your ranked session, but by the end of it, you find yourself on a stream of negativity? 5 or 6 straight games to end a session with negative SR, and yet you're still playing one more game, one more game, but you keep losing SR. Stop forcing it. Just get off the game or go to public matches and come back to it at a later time or come back on another day. I had a night with my friends that was going poorly. I had just reached Crimson 2 and then I had a few bad games in a row, and instead of getting off as we clearly were tired and burnt out, we kept forcing it. We wanted to have a good game to end the session, and next thing I knew, I went from Crimson 2 back down all the way to Diamond 3. And now I know better, as I've solo queued to Iridescent plenty of times in both Warzone and multiplayer, and this is a tip that I've used in multiple videos, yet I still let this happen myself. That was the last time I did that, and I refuse to do it again in future seasons. My rule now is 3 straight bad games, I'm swapping to pubs, or I'm gonna get off the game. As humans, we have a tendency to pile on things due to emotion, and our anger or frustration is our biggest enemy in a ranked mode, besides hackers. So don't let your emotions get the best of you. Take a break and refresh before you lose too much SR to make it up. After that session, I reached Crimson 2 again the next day and Iridescent just a few days later. If I kept forcing it that night and fell back into Diamond 1 or Diamond 2, I may have given up on Iridescent altogether. Don't let that happen to you. And that'll do it for today's tips. However, I had a bunch of other tips that I almost put onto this list and it was really hard to narrow it down to 10. So if this video gets 3,000 likes, I will follow up with another 10 tips to solo queue video. By the way, my name is Redix. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Starting with the new season of Call of Duty, I'm going to start streaming quite a bit now that I have a new PC. And I'd love to see you guys show up at the Twitch streams. I'll also be live on TikTok and YouTube. Now, if you do want a shout out in my next video, all I'm going to ask you to do is go down below the video, hit the share button, and click copy link. You don't actually have to send it to anyone, but you could send it to a friend of yours if they need these tips. Once you've done that, comment the word shared down below. It's okay if you already commented something, or if you're commenting something else, you can just add the word shared to your comment. And if I see that you shared the video, I will shout you out in my next video. We're also closing in on 50,000 subscribers. I'm excited to hit that, so thank you guys for all the support. Now with the new season of Ranked releasing, go implement these tips and see if you can pass the rank that you reached last season. I have a lot of faith that you guys can. I've been Redix and I'll see you guys soon.